first time to join me in the KDON studios. Oh, we've known each other for years, and we've talked elsewhere. Our own congressman from the 3rd, Dr. Joe Heck. How you doing, Doctor?
Doing great, Alan. Good to be with you in the new gig here.
It is great to have you here. Absolutely. You were one of the last people I interviewed in the last place, as a matter of fact.
That's right. I think I was. There was the next morning you told me what had happened, and that was quite unfortunate, but glad to see you here at KDON. Knew that man of your talents wouldn't be unemployed for long.
Well, they were ticked off I had you on. I'll be honest with you. And this place said to me, Dr. Joe Heck, how cool that you're having him on. So big difference in places. Well, all right. So let's talk about the big debate is tonight. You're going to be at the debate.
Right.
And who are you going to be cheering on?
Well, I have already endorsed Governor Romney, so I will be looking for the governor to have another stellar performance as he had in the past and win hands down.
All right, he's done pretty well. He's up in the top of the tier of the all polls, along with Herman Cain. How do you look at that? I mean, Rick Perry was up for a bit. Man, he came on like a gangbuster, and then he went way down. And now it's like Romney and Cain basically tied for the top two slots. How do you look at that?
Well, I think you look at how this entire cycle has progressed, where it's always been Governor Romney and somebody else tied for the first two slots. And this is kind of the adage, the tortoise and a hare. Slow and steady is going to win this race. And while the person that's up in the first two slots with Governor Romney will come and go, I believe that Governor Romney will remain and wind up with the nomination.
What do you think about Herman Cain and his rise, though? I mean, Perry came on because he's dynamic, and he is dynamic, and governor for 12 years of a state, and very successful financially in a state. But, man, he faltered in some of those debates.
Well, he did. He wasn't well prepared for the questions that he received, wasn't ready to go head-to-head with somebody who had significant debating skills. And I think Herman Cain has done an incredible job over the last several weeks. I've heard him speak many times in person. I've met Mr. Cain. He's an incredible public speaker. He can relate and connect with the voters. And once he came out with his plan, with the 999 plan, and he had something to really hang his hat on, showing that he may have some substance, he started to gain some momentum. But now we've seen the 999 plan is being picked apart, as any front-runner's plans will be picked apart. And so we'll see whether or not he can maintain his momentum throughout the rest of the primary and caucus cycle.
So this debate tonight is a big, big debate. I mean, it really is significant.
Sure, it's the first time that I think, that Herman Cain is moving into a debate as being one of the top two candidates. And so we'll see whether or not he's able to persevere through the harsh spotlight of being, that top-tier candidate.
Right. So you're not favoring. You don't think John Huntsman has too much of a chance at this point?
I think that you probably have a cardboard cutout of John behind the podium, and throw him a question or two and see what his responses are. They'll probably be just as good as if he was here in person.
Oh, geez. Dr. Joe Heck joining me in studio. But you're right, though. I mean, he's done terrible in the debates. I mean, let's just go through it and get rid of this aspect. First of all, Michelle Bachmann has got no chance. I don't. Please, does not have a chance. And she has not come across as great either. I know some of the Michelle Bachmann people are going to go, but that's how I see it. I think Newt has done great in the debates, but he's got too much baggage to get the nomination. But, he has been one of the most statesmanlike and most Reagan-esque because of his refusal to attack other Republicans. So, I think he has done a great job. I think Ron Paul has his cult, his contingency, his folks surrounding him. And they'll continually support him, but I don't think that he has the dynamism or the fervor to really go full bore.
Sure, I think you'll see that as we see there's a host of candidates that are in the low teen single digits, and then you have those folks that have broken the 20% mark, which are Governor Perry, Governor Romney, and Herman Cain, and we'll see amongst those three. How the jockeying for position takes place over the next several debates, and as we get into the what's turning out to be a rather raucous primary and caucus season with everybody jockeying for position. But I think that when you look at who are the three candidates that we have to, that most likely will be successful, it's those three. And again, I believe that come the nominating convention, it'll be Governor Romney.
Right. Rick Santorum was on with Heidi this morning, and he sounded fine, but he's got no chance either. And he comes across as someone who just is kind of whining. I'm just telling you how it is. That's how I see it. To the others. And my problem with these debates has been this, and you can respond how you want it, but this is how I've seen this. Is that a lot of the debates tonight? Anderson Cooper is going to be moderating. Anderson Cooper is a lib. Okay. And some of the other debates, some of the debates that they had at the Reagan Library in California. I mean, the moderators are liberal, and they want to, and even for that matter, the moderators from the Fox debate wanted the candidates just to mix it up. I know it's good TV, it's good radio, it's good press, it's good energy, and it'll make headlines in the paper. And I understand all that. And what happens is the Republicans get themselves sucked into a debate, and they attack each other. I talked to Amy Tarkanian about this last week, and she thought it's good, because she thought that it was, it's healthy, and then they can the strong ones will go on in the future, but to get the nomination and all. But the way I see it is that these people attacking each other in violation of Reagan's 11th commandment give more fodder to the Democrats, or in this case Barack Obama, who's going to run against one of these people, to be able to get up and say, hey, I know Romney's got the nomination, he's running, but even look what Perry said about him. Look what Huntsman said about him. Look what Santorum said about him, or however you mix it up. Again, Gingrich has been the one who stood back from this. Herman Cain pretty much stood back from this. But your guy Romney and Perry and Huntsman and Santorum have really mixed it up. I think they've done a disservice to themselves.
I think, it was great to see Newt Gingrich actually call out the moderators at the debate.
At the Reagan Library.
At the Reagan Library, very, bold, and that's just the kind of person that he is. And you're right. I think that it would be great to have a debate moderated, since this is a Republican debate, by a conservative group, something, a non, politically aligned conservative group that would be able to really just concentrate on the issues important to conservatives. And I think at some point in time, while we want to give every candidate an opportunity to be heard, you've got to start cutting off the folks that aren't moving, so that those folks that are in the top tier have the ability to spend more time answering questions and aren't being crowded out by folks that are just looking for their 2 or 3 minutes on TV.
But then is that a fair way to have a debate? If you focus on Romney and Perry and Cain, then, the others stand there. There are times that even Newt stood there and he said nothing for a long period of time, because people have thought to themselves, well, he's not going to get the nomination.
Right, well, that's why
Paul's not going to get the nomination, so they kind of ignore it.
Somewhere in time, I think you've got to get to the point where you say we're going to limit the debate to the top 4 or the top 5, and start weeding off folks from the bottom who haven't seen any movement in their poll numbers, especially after the first set of series of primaries or caucuses take place. But you want to be able to give those folks who truly are in the front running for a chance at the nomination the opportunity to talk about what their positions are.
All right. Oh, speaking of the caucuses and the primaries, we have been vilified here in Nevada, because we have upped our primary to the 14th, I believe, of January, and New Hampshire has got his knickers in his knit there. It really, really do, and they're blaming Nevada for this problem. But wait a minute. Just correct me. Wasn't it Florida that started this whole ball rolling? Why doesn't Huntsman, why don't the others talk about boycotting Florida?
Well, I think the big issue is what we've seen in the past is when this isn't the first time Florida has moved their nominating contest. And the last time they did it, there was no penalty associated with it. And so they feel, well, you know what, we can get away with it again. And I think that at some point the RNC is going to have to hold people accountable for moving their primary or caucus out of the normal rotation that's been set. And, of course, Florida felt that they could act with impunity because the nominating convention's in Florida this year. So, of course, they feel they're not going to take away our delegates. The nominating committee convention is here. And I agree. This is Florida's issue. If everybody wants to see it go back to normal order, then Florida should be the one to reset their dates. It shouldn't be Nevada's. It's important for us to maintain an early caucus here, not just for this cycle, but for future cycles, to maintain our place for future years.
So it's okay that we moved it like we did?
I think that it's fine that we moved it. It does cause me a bit of a concern that we may lose half of our delegates by making the move. And when you only have 28 delegates and getting it half to 14, and now our delegates are going to be proportional binding delegates. So that 14 will then be split amongst the candidates. That it certainly can weaken Nevada's position in the actual nomination. But I still think it's important for Nevada to have that early contest.
All right, I've got a lot of things I want to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on a lot of stuff, and I know we've only got a limited time, and I promise always to share you with everyone else. So 257-KDWN, 257-5396, if you'd like to talk to Dr. Joe Heck. I have a lot to talk with him about. I will share some of the time with you, but I want to get all my things out as well. But 257-KDWN, 257-5396, Dr. Joe Heck right here with Alan Stock on News Talk 720, KDWN, KDON. And right now, time to check in with Mitch Kelly in the KDON 1 at Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
Alan, thanks, and good morning. Traffic sure won't take up a lot of time. No Valley Freeway delays to speak of. 15, 215, 95, and Summerlin Parkway all in terrific shape. We do have a new crash at Charleston and Rancho. Seems like we get one of those at least every day. West Side accident, Tropicana east of Jones. Also one wrapping up Buffalo at Spring Mountain. Next update at 10:30 and from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center. Mitch Kelly, News Talk 720, KDWN.
I want to take a moment to tell you about the procedure I went through last January. It was the premium LASIK procedure. Dr. Richard Rothman over at LASIK of Nevada. An incredible experience because I walked in there after having worn glasses since I was 12 years old, and I walked out seeing better than 2015 to be exact. My son...
Because accidents do happen.
Whether it's 100+ degrees or raining, my dad always said the same thing to our customers. Car accidents happen. 15 years ago, my dad, Frank Wilson, created Arville Body and Paint, a shop that Las Vegas could trust. If you or someone you know needs body or paint work, call 257-7004 or go to arvillebodyandpaint.com.
Just call 257-7004. Arville Body and Paint. Because accidents do happen.
When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you don't go down. Save Money Radio, your money saving sound.
Never lose money again. I'm Herb Hickmore, and I'll show you how on my Safe Money Radio show Saturday afternoons at 1:30 and Sunday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk 720 KDON. Saturday afternoons at 1:30 and Sunday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Save Money Radio, your money saving sound.
And untraceable 24/7 private vaults. Come take a tour and get a free lollipop. Call me at 948-5555. 948-5555.
Listen up, sports fans. Don't try to beat the odds on your own. Check out the Las Vegas Sports Line at midnight, Monday through Friday, right here on KDWN. No nonsense, no 800 numbers, just knowledgeable, experienced analysis. Weeknights at midnight, the Las Vegas Sports Line.
And now back to the most influential local Las Vegas talk show host, Alan Stock.
Dr. Joe Heck joining me in studio, congressman from the 3rd Congressional District, my district, by the way, and my congressman, and I think he's doing a great job. You want to join in 257-KDWN, 257-5396. I know you endorsed Romney, but let me just say that Ron Paul unveiled his economic plan in Las Vegas this week and said he would cut $1 trillion from the federal budget. He would eliminate 5 cabinet departments, cut out U.S. foreign aid, let young workers opt out of Social Security. Do you object to any of that at all?
Well, by top lines, I think it's a very interesting conversation. But, of course, you got to look at the details, exactly what cabinet agencies is he going to get rid of? Where is he taking that $1 trillion from? What is the option for those people that he's going to allow out of Social Security? So, these are things that have all been talked about in Washington, D.C. in circles for years. The issue is what are the details and where's that money coming from and which agencies are going away?
Well, we know of one cabinet position we can eliminate tomorrow, which is the Department of Education. Bam, get rid of the whole thing. We don't need it.
Well, I think, and I've said before that, the Department of Education being more of an agency rather than a department like it was back in the old days of the health, education, and welfare, does it need to be a full cabinet level? Or does it need to be an agency within another organization, another cabinet agency that's responsible for the federal piece of education, which is small, as it should be, but nonetheless still a small piece. It's going to need some oversight.
Why should it be any piece at all? That's my question. I mean, why not let states handle education like they once did? And that was when we had a much bigger sense of who we were educationally in the world.
Well, and that's where we're trying to go right now in the House of Representatives. I sit on the Education and Workforce Committee. We're undertaking the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which had become known as No Child Left Behind, and looking at how we can return more flexibility and put the states and the local school districts more in charge of a child's education and parents more in charge of a child's education. Realizing that only about 10% of a school district's budget comes from the federal government, and there are so many strings attached to that 10% that we need to streamline that and say, look, you need to be able to do what you need to do with that money. But there are certain things like Title I, underprivileged, Title II, teacher, professional education, Title IX, equal opportunity, that money is provided for, that there's got to be some accountability and oversight.
What about not providing money for any of that stuff? What about not having the Department of Education? What about not having the federal government involved in education at all, like it once was not involved? Again, when I grew up, the federal government had no involvement in education at all. I grew up in California. I grew up in the Long Beach Unified School District. And when I grew up, Long Beach Unified School District was #1 in the nation. Now they're way down on the lower totem pole because of the federal government. It seems to me, looking back historically, even in my lifetime, I've been able to see how we have had a decrease in the quality of education the more the government gets involved. And with all due respect, I disagree with you that just by tailoring it back, the federal government's involvement back, I don't think it's going to help as much as it is by getting the federal government completely out of it and let states handle it in conjunction with the local school districts. I mean, if the state of Nevada and Clark County handled what went on here with parents involved on a local level, I think we would do a hell of a better job than anybody in D.C. can do, even the congressional people.
Well, and that's why in the Education Committee, we're looking at trying to make that happen. We've done 4 bills aimed at that reauthorization, providing flexibility for funding, empowering charter schools, coming up with better accountability measures for teachers, and trying to put that back where it belongs, which is what the majority of that committee is saying, is that it's got to be the states and local school districts that are in charge.
All right, let's talk about the foreign aid. Ron Paul wants to eliminate, cut out all U.S. foreign aid. Romney has said that he won't do it that way. But he's against using U.S. foreign aid to curry favor of foreign leaders. But he does want to review U.S. spending on Pakistan. You and I have talked about this before. I mean, Pakistan, we've now found out recently, been behind intelligence that has led to the deaths of Americans. And, of course, when that was said by the American government, they threatened us with cutting off any relationship to us whatsoever. But you and I, you sit on the committees. Right. I don't. You know, that must have a great sense of truth.
Well, you know, I agree that we don't want to use foreign aid to curry favor with other foreign leaders. But I think that depending upon the national interests that we have and the strategic interests of other countries and allies, that there may be an opportunity for foreign aid, Israel being a prime example. But now when you turn to Pakistan, a country that has not been very forthcoming, that talks to us out of one side of their mouth, then talks to China out of the other side of their mouth, tries to hold sway over the operations we're trying to conduct within their country to rid Taliban safe havens and the Haqqani network, that we have to start looking at withdrawing funds. And I voted against military funding to Pakistan already this year and would continue to do so until and if Pakistan becomes an honest broker. We have finite resources. Charity begins at home. We've got to take care of the issues that we're seeing here in the United States first. And then we've got to look at utilizing any foreign aid in a very decisive and deliberative manner for those who are truly our friends and who need our help.
All right. Also, Israel is a military ally of ours, in addition to other type of partnerships that we have. And yet, you know, I would say, fine, reduce some of the aid to Israel, but eliminate all the aid to all the Arab countries who are antagonistic toward us. So there would be less need for Israel to get as much aid if we did not give all the Arab countries any money at all. And the money that we gave Israel would be because of our special relationship, militarily and otherwise, that we have with Israel. But again, we could still reduce it, I'm sure. But let's eliminate all the aid that we give to Saudi Arabia, that we've been giving to Egypt. I mean, look, all the problems that have been going on over there. And those people, I mean, they hate us.
Well, that's why you have to look at those countries, especially what's been going on lately throughout the Middle East in light of the Arab Spring, and what is the new government going to look like in each one of these countries that have been affected by the Arab Spring? Which ones are going to be staunch allies with us and be helpful, and which ones aren't? And then we've got to tailor any foreign aid to what is in the best interest, strategic interest of the United States, as well as those other countries. And I agree that countries that wish to do us harm or are antagonistic, are not forthcoming and honest with us, really should not be receiving foreign aid.
No, they should not be receiving foreign aid, and a lot of those countries are hostile to us. Let's talk about another hostile country to us, and that is Iran. Look what just happened in the last week and a half. Some people think that that the American government went ahead and initiated this big deal because of all the attention from Fast and Furious being placed on Eric Holder. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But having said that, they feel that they have documentation that Iran tried to have the Saudi ambassador assassinated and the Saudi embassy and the Israeli embassy all blown up with any ancillary damage. Just that's the way it goes. That didn't care if hundreds of people got killed. Your thoughts on this? I mean, how long do we put up with this kind of stuff with Iran before we either unleash Israel or go back ourselves and militarily take out Iran?
Well, I hope we don't do the same path that we've seen with Cuba, which has been these economic embargoes and sanctions over a period of 40 some odd years, which have failed to really have a regime change in Cuba. And we're unfortunately, I see us going down that same path in Iran with, look, we give another set of sanctions and we mean it. And then we come back with more sanctions, say, now we really mean it. That is, we really, really mean it. The fact is, we have to take a hard line with Iran. We know that they're a destabilizing influence throughout the Middle East, with Afghanistan to their east, with Iraq to their west, two countries that we're involved in. We know that they're trying to influence actions in both Afghanistan and Iraq. We know that weapons that they have provided are killing U.S. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. We need to take a hard line with Iran, and it just can't be more economic sanctions than we really mean it.
Let me ask the question. What is a hard line in Iran? A blockade, an actual attack with perhaps tactical nuclear weapons to take out their nuclear capabilities, or other forms of weaponry to take out their nuclear capabilities? What do we do?
Well, I think, there are four elements of national power: there's diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. Economic hasn't seemed to be doing much lately. Diplomatic isn't doing much. I think we wasted an opportunity on informational when there was an uprising in Iran amongst the people that we could have helped foment and help with a regime change. So you look, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with a military option. And have we gotten to the point where a military option is warranted? They're still several years away from having a nuclear weapon. We continue to try to subvert their ability. We try to subvert their ability to get a nuclear weapon. I think that in conjunction with our true allies in the area, we need to come up with a formidable plan that will hold Iran accountable for its actions, especially now that they've contemplated an assassination on U.S. soil, and even Eric Holder called it, quote, an act of war, which I think is a very strong statement coming from Eric Holder. I think that at some point, as we draw down in other areas of operation from a military standpoint, I hope we don't get there, but I think a military operation against Iran is sometime coming in the future.
You do?
If they continue down this path.
All right. Well, I hope it's sooner than later, because I don't want to wait until we have an assassination on our soil, or we have embassies blown up, or have more innocent people killed like happened in 9/11, and then we decide to go after these people. Right. I mean, if we believe that this is going to happen, if we see that it's around the corner, I think we ought to take action as soon as possible, and I think you're absolutely right. It will happen eventually. Dr. Joe Heck joining me in studio, Congressman from the 3rd Congressional District, 257-KDW and 257-5396. We'll get to some of your calls in just a few moments right here on News Talk 720, KDWN, KDAWN. I'm Alan Stock.
Thousand watts of news and talk. KDWN Las Vegas.
KDWN News Time, 10:30. Good morning. I'm Barbara Cusack with this half hour's top stories. GOP presidential candidate Herman Cain is expected to come under more intense scrutiny during tonight's debate, now that his poll numbers have jumped upward. Utah's former Governor John Huntsman will be missing from that encounter due to the squabble over Nevada's caucus date. Social Security recipients will get a raise in January, their first increase in benefits since 2009. Experts project the increase will be about 3.5% for about 55 million beneficiaries. cemeteries. Las Vegas fire officials say a man was critically injured after a fire sparked by smoking in bed. Firefighters say a Nevada state trooper noticed smoke coming from the burning home late last night. One of the two men standing outside went inside to retrieve his car keys but did not return. The trooper crawled inside and found the man unconscious in a back bedroom. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 87. The news sponsored by Quaker State. Reach 300,000 miles with eligible Quaker State motor oils, and they'll give you the trade-in value of your car in cash. Details at QuakerState.com. 10:31. Here's Mitch Kelly with the latest from the KDON One Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
We're still quiet on the freeways, but just off of US 95 in the northwest, an injury accident eastbound Cheyenne over US 95, and a pair of leftover Surface Street accidents, Charleston to Rancho Tropicana east of Jones. From the KDON One Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
The KDWN forecast, sunshine, 85 degrees as our high for today with a clear 60 tonight. Repeat performance tomorrow with a sunny 85. Right now, it's 74 here in Vegas. Your next update at 11 o'clock or when news breaks, and we're always streaming online at KDWN.com. I'm Barbara Cusack, News Talk 720 KDWN.
Now a healthy business tip from Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield.
A recent study revealed that 63% of companies providing employee health benefits also offer dental coverage.
Here's another tip.
Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield today offers many dental plans with 100% coverage for preventive care to help keep your employees healthier and more productive. For details, visit anthem.com/specialty.
Independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Just ask Mary about making your money make sense. Just ask Mary.com.
Remember that amazing feeling of paying off your car or your credit card for the first time? Do you want to feel that way again but have no idea how to manage your money? I'm Mary Marriott, and I'll teach you how. Go to justaskmary.com. Listen, financial freedom is only a click away.
Just ask Mary about making your money make sense. Just ask Mary.com.
Would you like to save time, gas, and money? Imagine yourself in a sanctuary of cool water and exquisite landscaping. Relax on your patio, enjoy your landscape, have a barbecue, or play games in your pool. What if I told you that this retreat was in your own backyard? Call Courtney Landscape and Pools at 435-5799. Courtney Landscape and Pools will provide the landscape you've dreamed of. Call Courtney Landscape now to receive a free estimate and ask about a free gift. 435-5799 or visit colapool.com and have the landscape you desire.
Where does Las Vegas celebrate happy hour?
Blue Martini, Town Square.
Monday through Sunday from 4 to 8 p.m. Unwind at Las Vegas' largest and most talked about happy hour. Blue Martini in Town Square. And your day with half-price cocktails, martinis and beer, along with reduced price appetizers from Blue Martini's new menu. Remember, all cocktails, martinis, and beer are always half price during Blue Martini's happy hour. Monday through Sunday from 4 to 8 p.m. with reduced price appetizers from their new menu.
Blue Martini, Town Square.
Check, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And now back to one of the most influential talk hosts in America, radio icon Alan Stock.
Great to have you with us. Great to have in studio with me, Congressman Joe Heck, Dr. Joe Heck from the 3rd Congressional District. I want to get to some calls real quick. I do want to ask one question before we get to the calls, and that is about this Fast and Furious stuff that's going on. We know that between September 09 and December 10, congressional investigators said they purchased or aided. I'm talking about the in Mexico, the drug smugglers purchased more than 2,000 AK-47 assault weapons, and we allowed this to happen. The president knew it. It turns out Eric Holder really knew it, even though he lied to Congress about it. And I'm just wondering, what do you? I mean, should Eric Holder resign, or should there be an independent investigation? You can't have him investigate himself.
True. Well, I certainly think at the very least there needs to be an independent investigation, and I'm glad that the Committee on Governmental Oversight and Reform, Congressman Iss's committee, is looking into this. I mean, this is an absolute scandal. I mean, there's no other word to adequately describe what took place with us providing weapons to Mexican drug cartels and then having those weapons used against our own law enforcement personnel. An absolute disgrace. There has to be at least an independent investigation. And this isn't the first time that the Attorney General has had an issue come up on some of his decisions. And I think that for the benefit of the country, it would make it a lot easier if he would just step down. But I don't think that's going to happen, and therefore we're going to have an independent investigation.
So you think an independent investigation definitely is warranted and should happen ASAP?
Without a doubt.
I think you're completely correct on that one. Russ, you're on KDON with Dr. Joe Heck.
Good morning, Alan. Good
Morning, Russ.
Dr. Heck.
Morning.
Alan, I've given you a copy of my 80-10-10 plan before, and I believe I also sent it to your office, Dr. Heck. And basically what it says is that we would limit the federal budget to 80% of the expected revenues for any given year. Then of that remaining 20%, half would go to a contingency fund for in case of emergencies, natural disasters, et cetera, and the other 10% would go to pay off the national debt. I was happened to be at Governor Romney's open house yesterday, and I gave him a copy of this. And hopefully he will read it and embrace it. Now, question is, would you support that? Alan has a copy of it, I believe, if you want to get a copy of it right now. And
I don't have it handy right
that
now.
concept be something you would back?
Well, again, certainly I'd have to look at it. I haven't seen it. If it's come over to my office, I haven't seen it as yet. And I think that, it's one of the reasons why we're trying to push for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution to make sure that we're not spending more money than we're taking in. And that's going to be an important vote that comes up this fall in both the House and the Senate. Like you, I would assume, based on your 80-10-10 plan, that we want to get our deficit and our debt under control. And the way we're going to do that is by tackling programs that make up 60% of the budget, which is interest on our debt, Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. And so within the confines of your 80-10-10 plan, if it starts to address the big drivers of our budget, it's certainly something worth further consideration.
Russ, as always, good hearing from you, my friend. I appreciate your call.
No problem, Alan. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you very much. Let's head on over to Bob. You're on KDON with Dr. Joe Heck.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
In today's RJ, page 6A, it states that the United States has launched airstrikes against al-Shabaab leaders amidst concerns over terrorist training camps in Somalia. What the hell are we doing in Somalia? And for that matter, why did we go into Libya?
Well, that's a great question, Bob, and it was a question that I raised when we went into Libya. In my opinion, it was against in contravention to the War Powers Act. We tried to withdraw funding for operations there because I do not believe that there was an imminent threat to U.S. national interests within Libya. As far as operations in Somalia, we've had a small presence in the Horn of Africa for years. I'll be honest, I'm unaware of any airstrikes that have actually taken place in Somalia at this point in time. But I think it's very important that we look at every one of these operations. The president just decided to send troops as well into some Central African nations. And all these things have to be evaluated, whether or not it's within the president's jurisdiction. And we're fighting right now to hold them to the War Powers Act. And in fact, there's a couple of bills floating to make it even stronger.
All right. Appreciate your call, Bob. Let me throw an idea out to you. Republicans want to win next year, and we are only a year away from the election. In the early 90s, the mid-90s, Newt Gingrich was very successful as a Speaker of the House by initiating a contract with America. I have three questions for you real quickly. One, should we have a cohesive contract with America that the Republicans can offer to the American people? And should the contract include, that's part one. Part two is, should that contract include making English the official language of the United States? And number three, should that contract include targeting U.S. funding for the United Nations? People want us to reduce how much we're spending at the UN. Talking about foreign aid before. I'm talking about the United Nations in particular, which has done nothing but work against us. Number one, a contract with America?
I think a contract with America is worthwhile. The Republicans in the House during the last election cycle came out with their pledge to America, which laid out their blueprint for what would happen, what they wanted to move forward, their agenda, should they take back the majority in the House, which they did. And I believe the reason why they were successful was because they laid out a roadmap of where they were going to go if they were able to attain the majority. And we've been following that fairly closely as we move forward through this last year. So I think certainly a contract that lays out what the agenda is and what our pledge, our contract is to the American people who send us to Washington.
In very clear terms, yes.
Yes,
All
definitely
right.
Understandable. Be able to say, look, this is what, however many planks you put in it, 5, 10, but whatever the most important issues are to the American people, saying this is what we're going to do about this issue.
All right. What about English being part of it? English is the official language of the United States.
I've always supported English as the official language. We tried to do it here in the state of Nevada when I was in the state Senate. The fact is, every country has an official language, and the United States should have one as well. And certainly the official language should be English.
What about reducing U.S. funding for the United Nations?
have voted as well for amendments to bills that have already come through the House to curtail funding to the United Nations. I believe that we have to make sure that, again, it's not an organization. It's similar to foreign aid. You can't be funding something that's working against you. And at certain points in time, the United Nations seems to be working against us more than working with us. And the way for us to have a stronger voice is through the pocketbook, since we are the largest single funder of the United Nations.
All right, right now we're in a job crisis. Our economic stuff's in the tank. We've got officially a 9.4, I think, percent unemployment. I think it was 9.4 last I heard. But unofficially, it's probably more like about 18 or 20 or whatever. And so, I mean, it's much, much higher. We know that every time, going back historically, going back to even pre-Hoover, that every time a president, when faced with economic crisis, does nothing and allows the economy to adjust on its own, we have had a pretty quick resurgence in the economy. And every time, starting with Roosevelt, that we have actually starting with Hoover, that we tried to manipulate the economy, things went into the tank. Reagan, when faced with the same problem, let things ride, and the media vilified him. We're saying he's not doing anything, and he didn't. And the result was we had a quick turnaround in the economy. My question to you, what would you have us do right now in order to be able to turn this around where we have our jobs are absent and the businesses are not investing? How would you get businesses to hire again and get the economy going if you had the chance?
Well, I think there's three things that need to be accomplished to kickstart the economy and get people back to work. The first is we have to have a tax environment that encourages businesses to want to show some entrepreneurial spirit and either enlarge or start a new business and put people back on the payroll. So you have to have the right tax structure. As you know, we have the second highest corporate tax rate in the world, soon to be the first, because Japan is actually working to lower theirs. We need to have the right regulatory structure that makes sure that the appropriate safeguards are in place to protect people, consumers, the environment, but don't stifle business and industry. And then lastly, we have to have the educated workforce necessary for the jobs of the future.
But what do you do right now, though? Now, I mean, now is when
you get government out of the way. I mean, that's what you have to do. Unless you're a disciple of Keynesian economics and think that government can actually create a demand, you've got to get government out of the way. And that's what we've been trying to do in the House by rolling back onerous EPA regulations, by trying to dismantle the health care reform law. And you see, just recently, they decided to take out the Class Act, which was one of the key tenets of the healthcare reform law, realizing that there was no way it was going to be sustainable and affordable on how they wrote it. So we're trying to get government out of the way and allow folks, businesses, employees to get back to work and create those jobs.
What about the idea of two things? One, having government get involved in, we're getting out of it, it seems, of the space whole exploration. I mean, Kennedy started this big time. People have been behind the Democrats and Republicans all these years. Now Obama's pulling us back, and we're going to be dependent on everyone else in space in order for us to get our astronauts up there. Shouldn't we be at least going full bore with the space program? And the other question is, shouldn't we be going full bore by allowing private companies to search for all kinds of energy possibilities in this country, drilling oil wherever possible, nuclear plants, which, again, would employ people?
Sure. First, on the space program, space exploration remains critically important, if not for anything else, to be something that inspires future generations. But what we're seeing is, while we have scaled back from the government side, in keeping with what we've just talked about, we're going to rely more and more on private. There's private companies out there now in the United States that are looking to do launch. And they can probably do it more cost effectively than the government can. So we need to maintain our capability in space, but moving it over to the private sector is not a bad thing. It'll create jobs and stimulate the economy. The second piece, I think, I've always been an all of the above person on energy policy. We can't just say we're going to go green tomorrow and think that we're not going to have any coal, oil, natural gas involvement in our energy policy. It's just untenable. So, yes, we need to open up the Outer Continental Shelf. We need to be exploring for oil. We need to make sure that we can tap all the natural gas that we have. We have enough coal to keep us in energy for over 100 years here in the United States. We need to make sure that we're utilizing all of our own domestic resources. If not for any other purpose, it decreases our reliance on countries that aren't our friends, and it certainly will help create jobs here in America.
Both, exactly. It's a two-pronged attack. Dr. Joe Heck, Congressman of the 3rd Congressional, thank you for being here this morning. I do appreciate it. We'll be out at the debate tonight together, and we'll be cheering them all on. And hopefully you can talk to your guy Romney and say, don't get suckered into, a big fight with the others up there. Remember Reagan's 11th commandment.
I'll see if I can get him that message before the debate.
And then if somebody attacks him, he comes across as, as a bigger guy. I'm just looking at it listen, the important thing is to what? It's to beat Obama next November.
Well, we want to make sure that we have somebody in the White House who certainly has some leadership capability and has some innovative thoughts and plans on how to turn this economy around, and the current administration isn't that.
And don't say break Obama, because Ed Schultz from MSNBC says if you say you want to break Obama, that's a racist statement. You think I'm kidding? I'll let you look at it before you leave. All right, a lot more going on, so do stick around. I'm Alan Stock. This is News Talk 720 KDWN. Right now,